Welcome riding buddies. This week for my video we're going to do something a little bit different and very special. What I've got a test on a 1981 Honda CR125RB. Now this bike is very iconic in motocross history. It's the first Honda 125 with water cooling. It's the first model of Hondas that came out with the Prolink rear suspension. In its day, it wasn't rated as the best bike out on the track, but still it is a very iconic bike and a great little bike to ride. We'll go in and have a look at what it was all about, and we'll get a very special rider to come out and have a ride on one, and we'll go over the bike and just evaluate and see what it's like.
In 1981, Honda really stepped outside the box. They took all their experience from the RC Hondas from the previous years and tried to put them all into production. So this was our first year, 1981, of a water-cooled Honda CR125. Very unique bike, very different bike. Still had drum brakes, that was still a few years off. But the first introduction of the Prolink rear suspension really revolutionised Honda's motocross bikes. All the reports of the era said that the CR125 was not the most powerful bike out in the field. It also too didn't do everything exceptional. It wasn't the lightest bike, but also too it was not the bike that was the worst one out there. It was actually still a very competitive bike in 1981 in the 125 class. Brakes on the 1981 Honda CR125 were still drum brakes front and rear. Nothing too exceptional in this particular point. Single leading shoes, front and rear. The brakes worked quite okay, did pull you up quite well. Not exactly the leading brakes of some of the other makes, but definitely not a bad brake in that era. In 1981, Honda pulled out all stops with the engine on the CR125. Unfortunately, it did fall a bit short with horsepower, but it was their first attempt at a water-cooled engine in a production bike. The engine was a light switch. Half the time you'd think there was no point even having a throttle cable on the bike, just a toggle switch turning it on and turning it off. Anything below about 9,000, 10,000 RPM was absolutely pointless. But once you got it into that area, it really did get up and crack. Not the fastest engine of the era. Honda still had a lot of development, and we all know what happened by the time they got to the mid-80s. Everything turned around and Honda was on top. But in 1981, it was a great little engine, but just a little bit off the pace and very, very peaky. But still quite a good competitive little engine, once tempered with slightly. For 1981, Honda moved away from their own Showa front suspension and went to the KYB suspension. The biggest change for this, I don't really know why they did it, but the suspension was a little bit off, but it wasn't that bad. You could actually get it to work quite well. The chassis was a good compact little chassis. Was a little bit beefy and a little bit overweight even for that era. But overall, the suspension and chassis and handling of the bike was not too bad. You could get it to work quite well with a little bit of playing with the settings, just like any bike. But the big thing was the Prolink rear suspension. Of course, this was Honda's first attempt at a single shock rear end production motocross bike. Prolink, phenomenous with Honda these days. It wasn't the best setup on the track, but when you look at the way it was designed and developed, it is exactly the same concept as a modern motocross bike, with the linkages in the same style as they are today. So obviously Honda was really onto something with their rear suspension in 1981. All the other suspension developments of that era are a lot different to what they are these days, but Honda's is still a very noticeable commonality with a modern motocross bike. Overall, the 1981 Honda CR125RB was not exactly the greatest bike on the track, but it was a revolutionary bike in the fact it was the first of the Honda 125s with water cooling, The Prolink rear suspension was there ready to be set up properly. Everything about the bike was great. It was a very pretty little bike. Well, that's my view of it anyway. The front number plate, well, that's a little bit out there. But overall, it was a very nice little bike. It didn't really go out and win any championships, but the thing is, this bike set the basis for what was about to happen from Honda. We all know what happened in the mid-80s. Honda just dominated in everything, in every class. And this was the bike that started that dominance. It didn't dominate itself, but it set the stage for everything to come. I'd like to introduce you to our test dummy, rider, Ding. Ding will be doing the evaluations on the bikes as we do them. He always arrives on his full factory prepared Suzuki A100 and ready for action. We're just going to ask Ding his views and how he feels about the bike. As he does not actually speak English, I will be doing the interpretation for you after each question. So how do the brakes perform on the 81 CR125, Ding? The brakes actually perform quite okay for a bike of this era. You do have to hang on to them though, as they don't want to stop greatly. What about the engine performance? The engine's a real peaky little sucker and you really need to dance on the gear lever to get it to keep on the boil. How's the handling, Ding? Handles quite okay for a bike of this era. It doesn't turn great, but it does turn okay. Your overall view? Overall, a great fun little bike to ride. That is my evaluation on the 1981 CR125RB. This particular bike was lent to us by Brett Davidson, who kindly let Ding have a ride on it. He imported it from Japan in the condition it's in. So this bike is completely unrestored. It's in fantastic condition for its age, and to be honest, Ding was a little bit reluctant to ride it because he didn't want to scratch it and damage it on Brett, but he kept it up and looked after it, and thank you so much to Brett for bringing it up and letting Ding have a ride on it. Also too, this is just our opinion of the bike. Obviously, back in the day, they were a reasonably competitive little bike, but these days they're just so much fun to ride. It's just a great little thing to jump, throw a leg over, jump on, and go out for a ride on. So this has just been my opinion. Other people may have a different opinion, and that's entirely up to them. But yes, we enjoyed the morning with the bike, having a ride on it, checking it all out, and also too catching up with Brett and talking to him about his bikes as well. So thank you to everybody for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. There will be a lot of other bikes coming up in the future. I've got a few bikes lined up as well to add to this collection, and it should be quite interesting to see what we come up with and what they're like. There is a YZ465 in there to be done as well, which is also from Brett. And that thing was a monster, but really shocked Ding as to the way the engine characteristics were. But thank you everybody for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. It'd be nice if you put up a like on the video, and we'll be talking to you very soon. Thank you.